everyone, Alec the Side Questian Gentleman here, and welcome to my Season 6 finale where I await possible execution if I'm found guilty of the supposed crimes I've somehow committed against the multiversal empire. So while I wait to go on trial to defend my actions, I want to keep my mind off things for a little bit. Let's take a look back at something familiar. Season 6, the production of each and every episode up to this point. Season 6 is the most recent season of recent memory, so why don't we talk about the production of each and every episode and even respond to some of the community feedback? I think that'd be a fun idea. Season 6 of the SQG Review Show was a fantastic season, if I do say so myself, and it continued the good streak I had going with Season 5, so I felt it necessary to see how this apocalyptic crisis brought out the best content I put out so far, because in 2020, it seemed like the whole world just shut down as cases of COVID started breaking out, and a lack of knowledge on this terrifying super virus scared the crap out of me and a lot of us. Hell, it was so bad it even scared the corporations. So, to slow the spread of the virus, my place of work closed its doors for several months. And while the first few weeks of it was like a vacation, I quickly grew bored like at the tail end of a summer vacation, except for the remaining 2 months, and spent that time finishing the last few videos of Season 5 like the Coldplay X and Y review, as well as the Season 5 finale Part 2. It's weird to think that Season 6 began in June of 2020 when I got back to work, but beforehand, 4 scripts were written and all the footage was recorded, so it was merely a matter of just bringing it all together. My Doom 64 Lost Levels review was the Season 6 premiere, and honestly, looking back on it, it's not my best work. And while I kind of retired the level-by-level analysis style I used to do where I mention each and every detail of said levels even if it's inconsequential, rather than consolidating the points together at the sacrifice of linearity, I mean, I still had a reason to talk about them, but still. It's probably my least favorite episode of the season as I rushed it to coincide with the algorithm's sudden interest in Doom-related content, thanks in part to the release of Doom Eternal. I was legitimately interested in covering the lost levels, but it could have been shorter. The follow-up video, however, I'm still very proud of, and that being that every Super Mario Bros. 3 world ranked from worst to best, and thankfully it was a surprise hit. I did, however, pay for advertising on YouTube's recommended videos for a week just to get it more attention later on, but it was still a hit and to this day is the season's best performing video as it still rakes in the views. And to this day I still get comments about their rankings and whether they agree or disagree with my points. Unlike Doom 64 where I felt like I over-explained things, this video consolidated the points I want to say about each and every world without covering every single level, and that kind of became the basis of how I cover level design and even the reviews. It's amazing that I still get comments to this day about their rankings and what points they agree or disagree with, although some were a bit mixed on how I felt about the Fire Bros secret in the Desert Hill world, with 2 even pointing out an audio signifier being the sound of Bros type enemies taking a map turn to move despite there seemingly being none on screen. I still find that to be a bit obtuse to know that one of these random rocks are breakable at the top right of the screen. Like, I know something's being hidden, but where is the entry point of the secret? But I will leave my ego at the door and openly admit I did not consider that audio signifier and congratulate those who actually found it. And I am so glad that this video reached over 10,000 views. It's probably my most popular video as of writing. And with that said, I am happy to announce that I'll be doing more ranking videos like this next season. I actually have a script for it already finished and another in the works, and if this is a niche to finally get my Z-list channel into the Y category, then let it be. It'll bring attention to my channel, which will get the reviews that I'm more passionate about to get more views as a result, so I'm happy to do this kind of side project. Now, as for the third video I released during that summer, the Sonic movie review, it was not the big view bringer that I was hoping it would be, as I was so proud of how that script turned out. It's still one of my favorite videos of the season, and my only regret was not at least mentioning the product placement being very blatant throughout the movie. You see, I personally don't mind product placement as it makes the fictional movie world feel like a part of the real world that we're in, but the Sonic movie definitely got into the Space Jam 1 levels of unapologetically blatant product placement. So despite not bringing in new viewers, I do plan on covering the second movie at some point. However, it won't be a priority, as I kinda want to get Season 7 off the ground. But I do plan on doing more movie reviews, even though they'll be very sparse. But the reviews are very easy to make because there's less footage to sift through, and I honestly like talking about them. It's not like a video game where I have like 5 to 8 hours of footage to sift through, unless I cover Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is 4 hours long. But thankfully the views came back with the 4th episode being Super Mario Kart, which was another video I paid a week of advertising for because I was just that proud of how it turned out and wanted more people to see it as an entry point for the SQG Review Show. And it got a lot of insightful comments from both people who liked the game, hated it, or were in my position of, it's okay. Sure, some people gave me some driving tips and insisted that the handling isn't slippery, but that wasn't my only issue. My issue was more along the lines of that, in combination of flat track designs that just fails to measure up to all of its successors save for Super Circuit. I am aware that was all the Super Nintendo was capable of, but F-Zero kinda did this a lot better. That is a significantly more fun racing game, because it knew what to do with its limitations and made the most out of it. It just lacked multiplayer that would have brought players back for more, so there's that. And the Super Mario Kart retrospective was the last of the bi-weekly videos and ended off the Summer of SQG portion of Season 6A. It also fell on the weekend before my channel's 6th anniversary, so I made it the de facto 6th anniversary special, which works out great because I did reference 2 Season 1 videos coincidentally. So looking back, the summer of SQG 2020, it was a really good summer, and quarantine really helped speed production along with those 4 videos, although I originally meant for the 2-part editorial to come out at the end of the summer rather than the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021. Yeah, I am pretty guilty of almost never meeting personally set deadlines. But if procrastination is a crime, then lock me up and throw away the key.
Alright, Alec. It looks like if you plead guilty to the conspiracy and murder charges, they will give you 300 years at the Glass Asylum.
No, fuck no. I would rather get sucked into a black hole, honestly, because that place is terrifying.
Alec, with all due respect, are you crazy?
Crazy like a fox. Do a barrel roll.
Alec, this is serious.
Yeah, well, so is my innocence. That is pretty serious too, but you're not taking that seriously.
You see, Alec, I believe you. Only because you cloned me, Trav, Super Gamer, and Rober Onicle without our permission, just so that we can be used as characters that get hurt without consequences. What happened to them again?
They were heard backstage plotting to kill the originals and take over your lives, basically. I did you guys a solid. Besides, that was last season's conflict. Can we just keep it episodic, or at least within this season's storyline for once? Kinda sick of this carrying over to other seasons.
I'm afraid not, because real life is one overly long serialized melodrama. You can't just hit the reset button and all the enemies and clones you beat the crap out of for a joke would just act as if it never happened. You opened Pandora's box when you had Dr. Jim Elgar clone us. You didn't think that you wouldn't be cloned by SQIA, who want nothing more than an internet celebrity scapegoat?
But keep in mind, in the grand scope of the multiverse, I'm still just a minor celebrity, even among my own peers that are exactly like me. I'm not even the best side-questing gentleman out there.
Even better for them. You have a decent enough following across the multiverse, being the last surviving Alec-type Psyquestian that still reviews video games among the localized quadrant of registered realities. But we both know you're not exactly well off financially.
Evan, what exactly is your point?
The point is, they want you dead. Especially the Dominionist Party majority that wants to look tough on crime for the 2025 re-election. There are cameras set far enough away from the event horizon, but close enough for all to watch you get sucked into a black hole, on livestream. Being institutionalized is your last chance of survival.
Or is it? There could be a Deus Ex Machina cooking up somewhere.
Your backup bodies have had their warp gates confiscated. Those Psyquestians are marooned on their respective Earths, never to see you again. So don't think you'll get some backup like last time. Because Alec, this is it. One life remaining, and if you lose it, game over.
Yeah, I know how the game of life is played. Might as well just face the music. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, Evan. I guess I'll see what's gonna happen. See you at the courtroom. Speaking of procrastination, if there's one thing that the two-part editorial says about me as a YouTuber, I am not a very efficient content creator. I sometimes get comments about why I'm not more popular, and while these comments are nice, it's a very simple explanation. I don't release content consistently, and that's kind of a hard gamble for the YouTube algorithm. I sometimes spend up to a week on just one entire minute of an editorial because I would just be that dissatisfied with how it looks or sounds throughout production and want to make it as perfect as I possibly can. But it honestly felt great to have a new creative spark. And while I was working on the remaining 2 planned back-to-back editorials, something was announced that I just had a lot to say about it, to the point where I shelved all other projects just to get this done. And that would be the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection, and this was a minor hit for the channel, relatively speaking. I got a ton of retweets and support from colleagues when I launched it, including from Crimson Mayhem. That was honestly unexpected. I mean, he is an avid gamer, but he's also one of the arbiters of the animation fandom on Twitter, so to get support from not just the gaming side of Twitter, but also the animation community, it was a very pleasant surprise, and just goes to show how poorly received this collection was by so many people across various fandoms, because this is Super Mario. These games were instrumental in forming how a lot of us viewed not just game design, but also animation and even music composition. And I will admit, this video kind of began my unapologetic phase that we saw hints of in the Super Mario Bros. 3 World Rankings video, whereas I stopped walking on eggshells when writing for videos and just started writing them with more confidence and less of that people-pleasing nature that I used to write these scripts in, which is admittedly a character flaw I'm still desperately trying to shed. I'm getting better about it, but I just don't want to go too far into the other direction. It's perfectly alright to not want to be a shock rocker of a YouTuber, despite my deep admiration for YouTubers who flip off the status quo, but sometimes situations like the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection really wasn't worth defending, so I didn't really have a lot to apologize for. It's not me trying to be an egotistical prick just for the sake of it, and I did my best to explain that I don't judge those who want the collection and will buy it regardless of the video. But with a limited release and a full price tag that has nothing about it worth defending, especially when they were released in such a downgraded state in an age where free emulation software can do a much better job of capturing the Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy experiences more accurately. And I was proud of how that video turned out, and people seemed to really like how it turned out as well. So much so, I did something like this again with Skyward Sword HD's remaster the following year. But there were more mistakes that I made, like how I said Twilight Princess HD for the Wii U was $60, but in actuality it was $50. Special thanks to Harain for pointing that out, but also special thanks to PK in the Universe for chiming in, saying that it was $60 in some editions. And my good friend Frank from Gotta Be Frank, formerly Knuckles Channel 3 Knuckles, formerly Super Frank Plays, formerly Frank the Game & Tank, he pointed out that me stating how Donkey Kong Country 3D's $40 price tag was good compared to Tropical Freeze's Switch port's $60 was somehow pro-consumer, despite all 3DS games being $40 at full price, was an odd comparison to make. And he's absolutely right, and I'm honestly a bit embarrassed to admit that was honestly a point I was originally so proud of, like, yeah, I hit the nail on the head, except I missed the nail. But hey, I am at least still proud of how that video turned out, since despite the factual errors regarding pricing of said remasters, the thesis of the video still stands, and most people like the video despite those instances of factual errors. I'm not so up my own ass where I can't admit to making a mistake, because otherwise that'd send me down a toxic rabbit hole of anti-criticism that I see many YouTubers fall into, and if I ever end up like that later down the line in the unlikely event I become YouTube famous, please give me hell until I fall off my cloud of pretense I've been sitting on and float back down to earth with the rest of civilization. Now back to the 2020 and early 2021 with a two-part editorial. I was honestly a bit disappointed that the release of these videos weren't closer together as I originally wanted. But throughout January, I was suffering lingering panic attacks for 2.5 weeks for IRL reasons that I won't disclose. Most likely the stress of mandatory overtime and fear of COVID-19 being a cocktail of unpleasant emotions that left me feeling barely functional. Seriously, I spent that time isolating myself in my room with nothing but Home Improvement and that 70s show reruns to ground me back to reality, so I really couldn't use the energy to work on videos. But the back-to-back editorials being on the nostalgia goggles fallacy and the condescending gaming grandpa fallacy were some of my favorite videos from the season, mainly because I got to tackle these common fallacies I see unironically posted by various gamers on various forums throughout the internet, especially Facebook. It's especially annoying seeing fellow YouTubers get bad faith arguments by these types of people, so it felt exhilarating to tackle this head on, while addressing why nostalgia isn't the terrible boogeyman that some make it out to be, and why modern gaming isn't always on easy mode, and in fact, there's a lot of examples where the opposite is true. With the condescending gaming grandpa video being the first video of 2022, I actually planned on Super Puyo Puyo 2 review to be a holiday special to celebrate the new year. All the live action footage was recorded back in December, so I had to figure out a way to still use it, and so I used time travel to explain it all in the end. But unlike Sonic Colors and Star Fox 2 Revisit, I finally explained how it all happened in a cheesy sci-fi way that will eventually catch up to me in Season 7. Anyways, I thought this video was bland compared to my other work, at least when I first released it, but I was honestly surprised that hardcore Puyo Puyo fans liked how I framed my perspective. And upon rewatching it several times over, I think I was just bummed that it wasn't a full-length review episode, but in retrospect, it was as long as it needed to be, no more, no less. Maybe I was just ready to move on to the next project, so much so that initial resentment built up, like, I'm so glad I'm done working on this video, now I can move on. But either way, I'm glad it turned out that the episode wasn't a miss, especially because there were only 4 real SQG videos that came out in 2021. And my favorite of that content drought being the April 20th special, which was a review of the cult classic Forbidden Zone, which is a weird ass movie that felt like the writers were completely high when making this. So of course I made that the April 20th special. Get it? 4/20? Only Americans get that because the Europeans always put the day in front of the month instead of us who put the month in front of the day. Anyways, my friend Alton loved the review so much to the point where he shared the hell out of it like he did my old Superman 64 review. My advice to aspiring content creators, get yourselves the best friend that lifts you up like this. Thank you so much, Alton, you've been great to me all these years. But anyways, this video was a lot of fun to write just because of how bizarre it was. The jokes were practically writing themselves, and I am really proud of how it all came together, and really, it was easy as hell to edit as I literally took a week off from work just to work on this video to get it out on time. Because I had to make that 4/20 deadline, and I was done with it on April 19th, so I could take the rest of the week off. However, if there was one thing I would change, I'd definitely expand upon the discussion of problematic usage of blackface, as I feel I didn't explain it sufficiently. My mindset when writing this was, how do I address this in an educational context, when I should have been a lot more firm about why blackface is wrong and has always been wrong. I know I'm a white man and I'm not a victim of this nasty form of racism in media, but I also don't want to let this go as to neglect to talk about blackface in any context when the very thing you're reviewing has a lot of blackface in it. That would be a failure of a review, and especially a failure of the reviewer. Reviews have to talk about this just to warn audiences about the type of content in the movie. And in the comments section, this was surprisingly a contentious topic. Like, I was really surprised at how dismissive some of the responses were, including one by a black individual who personally saw no problem with it. But blackface by its very nature is a major problem in some media. It upsets people as it harkens back to minstrel shows where extremely racist white people dressed in blackface and acted all silly and buffoonish just to validate the very racist points of view of the white majority at the time. The same white majority that wrote Jim Crow laws that restricted the freedoms of black people in America for so long. Even black actors way back then sometimes participated in this, as black actors didn't have nearly as many acting gigs as their white counterparts, so they were often coerced into these humiliating minstrel shows. I get Forbidden Zone is a tribute to the cartoons of the 1940s, but there are simply some things, in fact, there are many things that you simply do not pay tribute to. It doesn't matter if a few people don't see a problem with it today, because many black people do have a problem with it, and they have very valid reasons for it. Thankfully, the scenes featuring blackface don't go over 3 minutes in the movie, so I can understand loving Forbidden Zone despite the use of blackface. But it is definitely not worth defending or hand-waving away as not a big deal. This movie was made in 1980, and the usage of blackface was heavily criticized back then, so the product of its time excuse can't even be used here.
Hey everyone, it's Rob Aronicle, the main editor for this video. Being that I'm a black individual living an expectedly black life, I've got a few cents to share. I won't be long. The circumstances surrounding a situation and the subject matter within said situation are two different cases. My favorite case study on this topic is The Boondocks, a show that, in terms of humor, often sits on the circumstantial side of the spectrum. While not perfect, the show generally offered excellent commentary on several uncomfortable topics, especially those regarding African American culture. This commentary often came packaged in humorous details such as exaggerated facial expressions, animations, and emotions. To keep from getting this humor confused with basic shock value, the Boondocks often wrapped up their jokes or episodes with a rather sad or cynical tone to raise awareness of the topic in question. This doesn't happen with every joke, because the show would become a 20-minute lecture, but it happens enough to silently convey that it's not tearing down any parties involved, unless that party is problematic by proxy. Blackface has no such goal by comparison. Blackface, by design, projects stereotypes onto a black character and leaves it at that. Setting aside my personal disdain for the subject matter being both the A and B in a joke because they do nothing but treat the said subject matter as the punchline, blackface respectively treats the subject, the exaggerated characteristics, as the punchline, offering little substance, or as some like to say, all edge and no point. Tropic Thunder's Kirk being in blackface worked the way it did because the humor derived from a white person trying to desperately emulate black culture and failing miserably, as shown by his constant spouting of basic knowledge of black stereotypes and the scrutiny that the character constantly falls under by his peers. Oftentimes, properties like the Boondocks and Tropic Thunder get lumped under the offensive category simply by their merit of offering a deep-cut look at a subject. But in my opinion, humor backed by a firm and genuine observation is not offensive, because there's an answer being sought out. While there's no rule stating that humor must reach this level of depth in every case, as everyone's got their high and low bar for what will make them laugh, the internet as a whole is smart enough to understand this nuance in jokes, because people like Amy Schumer come under fire for this same aimless approach to humor.
And thankfully, the new director's cut will feature the drug dealer in the beginning and Clownface, but I'm not sure if the devil's minion with a pitchfork will get similar treatment. It's even weirder because this movie did cast black actors playing just regular black characters in the schoolhouse. So they really could have done Clownface for the drug dealer and had the black actor who played the devil's minion not wear any blackface makeup at all. And yes, black actors in blackface is also very problematic for previously mentioned reasons. And there are many videos on the subject that can do an infinitely better job explaining it than my very limited perspective. So if you're more interested in the topic, please check them out. Well, that's about the only thing left, as that was surprisingly divisive in the Forbidden Zone reviews comment section, so I feel it's important to talk about it now. So 2021 was definitely the worst content drought for me, but I am proud of the videos that I released in that time, but I do wish I hired an editor sooner to tackle some of the side projects like editorials while I worked on the reviews, just so my upload schedule can still be in that occasionally category rather than rarely or whenever the hell he feels like it. Because the last video being on full price remasters was in August, and I wouldn't upload a real SQG video in 6 months? Has it really been that long? Prisoner number 60995. The trial will begin soon. Please follow me. Well, it's about time. I'm not getting any younger. Alec Jameson Alger of Earth SQ-101, you have a long history of committing crimes against the Psyquestian Empire. For one, you've been using backup bodies to put your original consciousness in and then sending their consciousness into a virtual reality paradise where they can live out the remainder of their lives. Body jacking is illegal regardless of signed consent. That, as well as tampering with the timeline 3 times. You didn't think that would catch up to you? Not to mention the charge of resisting arrest and the murder of a bounty hunter. But it was self-defense! You also have a long history of video game piracy and even crossing the border of the multiverse just to go into realities where rare games in your reality are cheaper than those ones. That, Mr. Alger, is a felony, and we all have Fetcher Mick to thank for his tip.
Hello, 'tis I, the fetch question gentleman, and I say that side question gentleman son of a bitch is guilty. Oh yes, he is guilty, guilty, guilty. You know what really boils my eggs? He sent me used sex toys. Oh yeah, I specifically ordered brand spanking new, but they were used. And I could smell a used sex toy a mile away, so I know they were used. And also, last but not least, he put Nair in my shampoo. Yes, Nair in my shampoo. Look at my fucking hair. You son of a bitch, side question gentleman. You are fucking guilty.
Order in the court. And we also have 1 count of egregious assault against Alexander Top Hats. By striking him, you've permanently damaged his one eye and he has to wear a monocle for the rest of his life. Do you know how out of fashion monocles are? He will be the laughingstock of his yacht club. I don't even feel bad about that one. He was lobbying for anti-consumer laws.
Oh my god, Your Honor, I request that you strike that from the record.
Request denied. Mr. Alger, with all these charges against you, I just have one thing to ask. Are you insane?
Yes!
No, I do not plead insanity. Alec Jameson Alger, the court finds you guilty with a universal vote from the jury. And with that said, the court will hereby sentence you to death by black hole spaghettification. Court adjourned. Well, the jury sure let me down on that one.
No, Alec! All you had to do was plead insanity. The judge practically saved the opportunity for you. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Don't worry about it, Evan. Your legal fees will be paid in full. I got you covered. I wouldn't skimp out on that, even in the event of death, but you did the best you could, so I can't really ask for more than that. Besides, I think I have a plan. Guard, I'm ready to be escorted back to my cell.
Oh no, what are you up to?
So now for the last year of Season 6, 2022. Admittedly, these seasons tend to span for way too long, and even though there is no official cutoff for when a season can end, with most TV shows going on for like a 10-month span before taking a break for the summer, I take it as long as I need it to, and I save the best for last. But because 2021 was so freaking sparse with content, I decided to do the unthinkable. I hired an editor for the editorials and even most of this video, and I'd hire him to work on those videos while I worked on the reviews, which have been exclusively Mega Man related. As for the Roboronicle trilogy, being the Don't Copy That Floppy video, as well as the Sega Game Gear advertising video, and the Sonic Frontiers video, I was really pleased with how his style worked with mine, and the jokes he added were great, so much so that he would ask if it was okay to go in this direction with a live action segment, and it'd almost always be way better than the original plans, so much so I'd keep it in. Like for example, the Sega Game Gear advertising editorial, I had a joke where I'd knock myself out with an Iron Man action figure just to see colors on the Game Boy, but I would end up running to the toilet and puking as heard with a still shot on the bathroom door just to keep it PG, implying that I suffered from a serious concussion. But he changed it so that ties with a previous joke beforehand about whether giving yourself a concussion would be cheaper than owning a Game Gear and buying all the batteries for it, and I loved how he nailed the look of the special stage screen from the Sonic the Hedgehog games. The joke was funnier, it went by quicker, and it fits the theming of a Sega-focused video. He also would fulfill an idea that I told him he wouldn't have to do if it was too difficult in the editing department, but he made the "they're the same picture" joke from The Office for the Sonic Frontiers video happen, and it was glorious. I'm so glad I took on another editor, because while I was initially worried that it would sacrifice my artistic vision, what I got instead was a collaborative effort, and I'm proud to say that I liked how all 3 of these videos turned out. Although, while the Sega advertising video has nothing to add, as that was purely reaction based and an examination of the intentions of each teaser trailer, the Sonic Frontiers video had people mentioning the skill tree that would progressively make combat easier as you get further in the game, which is something I should have addressed as that was common knowledge by the time I scripted the video, but it still circles back to whether this more complex combat system would be a welcome addition or a pace-breaking aspect of Sonic Frontiers. I also should have mentioned Sonic R when talking about the Sega Saturn's lackluster output for the Blue Hedgehog, as I made it seem like they only released Sonic Jam and Sonic 3D Blast as all they had to show for the main series entries. While Sonic R is technically a spin-off game and not part of the main series, the lack of any mention might disappoint some people, as that game did take Sonic to the 3rd dimension in some form, even if it's a racing game with platforming and not a 3D platformer. But I still should have mentioned it, but I didn't because I forgot. And as for my "don't copy that floppy" editorial, I did get a response saying I was expecting too much out of an educational video, as if they were to go with the ins and outs of the law, it would be way too long. But honestly, they could have added 10 more minutes to it, having it being a standalone sitcom style with DP's rap interspersed throughout the video. If Bill Nye episodes can be almost a half hour, I don't see why that couldn't be the case with "Don't Copy That Floppy," as teachers did find the time to show us an entire Bill Nye episode. I mean, they don't have to throw in technical terms, but rather introduce them, explain them with visuals, and simplify them for kids to easily grasp. They don't even have to be editing intensive. How hard is it to keyframe images and arrows and have them fade in and fade out? It's literally basic editing 101. This user also mentioned calling it fear-mongering was a bit much, but agreed that "Don't Copy That Too" was garbage. I don't know how telling grade school kids in schools across the country that software piracy will cause a digital dark age is anything but fear-mongering. Saying, "if you do this, then this terrible thing would happen widespread," seems to fit that very definition, and the fact that so many companies were involved in the production of this video seems to imply education to promote their self-interest rather than for the common good of society. All I know is, the US copyright system sucks. It is anti-consumer more often than not, and serves to only make billionaires hold even more wealth through litigation. Take for example, copyrighted works being protected with life of author plus 70 years. That is way too long for something that should be public domain after the life of the author. I think it was pretty clear that you shouldn't pirate software just for shits and giggles, but there's a lot more to the debate, like copying educational software for widespread use in low-income schools, for example. Why should low-income schools be entitled to a lesser education than better-funded schools? However, they are correct that me bringing up shareware does not infringe on rights, so my response should have only focused on commercially available software. And I also never considered how underfunded a non-profit video like this was, especially back in the 90s, so I do appreciate Porig for their comment. I don't agree 100% with them, but they were extremely civil and enlightening. And now, time for the meat of the season, the classic Mega Man handheld retrospective, at least the remainder of it. Because in Season 5, I originally intended to cover 4 and 5 Game Boy, but was way too burnt out to proceed, especially with 4 and 5 being very lengthy scripts, so I opted to shelve them for Season 6. And while it's never a good idea to split a serialized multi-part retrospective, I do believe it was for the best, as these scripts have gotten many revisions from 2019 to 2022, and I trimmed a lot of fat that would have held back the reviews in terms of pacing. Season 6 saw me attempt to be more concise while still leaving no stone unturned. Whether I succeeded or not is personally up to you, but I am very certain that if I released Mega Man 4 and 5 Game Boy reviews in 2020, they would have been way too long, with 4 and 5 being almost an hour and a half. Yeah, that is how much fat I had to trim, and while I do respect long-form reviewers and their contributions to their content's respective fan bases, I can assure you those videos I would have released would have had some downtime, especially for the level design sections. because there are two forms of long-form content. Number one, the long-form content that is well-paced and has a good reason to justify said length. And two, the long-form content that is paced poorly with repeat talking points to stretch out the runtime. And to prevent any misconception that I'm saying this from a holier-than-thou perspective and the self-proclaimed expert of long-form analysis content, no, I am not. I'm still trying to figure this shit out for myself. I am saying this as someone who has made videos that fall into the latter category. Just check out some of the videos I made in Seasons 3 and 4 that were longer. Super Mario Bros. 3, the GameCube retrospective, Pharaoh's Wrath, and even Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 come to mind. The last one actually got a comment from a very good friend of mine saying how some of my longer reviews felt more like a Let's Play than a review, and that really hit me like a brick to the face, because I knew deep down he was correct. And that's also been my personal metric. So with the level design sections of the reviews, I approach discussion with 4 easy steps. Number 1, how do I praise or scorn the tutorialization of the early levels? Number 2, what similar elements of level design, whether good or bad, can I consolidate into a seamless flow of relevant information? Number 3, what can I say about enemies, then mid-bosses, then stage bosses? And number 4, how do said levels compare to others in previous or even future games in the series? And as a result, Seasons 5 and 6 abandoned the chronological this happened, why is good / bad, then this happened, repeat formula, in favor of a consolidated point-by-point structure. It's why the ending of a story will be talked about in the beginning of the review since it's part of the game's story presentation, and if I want an organic review conclusion, I won't say, wow, look at this ending, and then reiterate what just happened as a cheap way to tug at your heartstrings, but rather assess the hard work that the developers did, or lack thereof. So, the other Mega Mans 4 and 5, I am very pleased with how they turned out. After 4 Game Boy came out, I saw some mutuals joining the 4 Game Boy is worth playing bandwagon, and 5 Game Boy brought new people to the channel. I knew most people wanted me to cover that, so I paid for advertising to get it recommended to more people as an entry point for the SQG Review Show. And while comments didn't pour in like I was hoping, the views did at least. Not as much as I was hoping for, but 4.2k views? I'll take that. The Mega Man Game Gear video is probably my favorite of the retrospective because it was a break from long-form content and back to standard length, but it was also an opportunity to be angry and have a new point of comparison as to what a poorly made Mega Man game looks like. It's also nice to have what was originally planned as a bonus episode to be a part of the main retrospective. Same goes for Mega Man Base Challenger from the Future. This was my 150th review, and yes, I did plan the handheld retrospective to end either here or review number 149, so number 150 could begin the Shovel Knight retrospective. But instead, I went with having Challenger be at 150, and while the Shovel Knight retrospective is in the cards for Season 7, see what I did there. It definitely won't be what comes immediately after, as multi-part retrospectives take their toll on me and I need some time to recover. And speaking of Challenger from the Future for the WonderSwan, this was a great way to celebrate not just 150 reviews, but also the 8th anniversary of the SQG Review Show as we know it. I was so happy with all the cameos, and for this milestone review to be about the least talked about of the classic Mega Man series, I am glad to be one of the few who are talking about it, so those mildly curious about it can stumble onto the video and maybe subscribe to the channel. I like how it turned out, but development of it was hell. I had to delay the review twice because it wasn't 100% up to my extremely nitpicky quality standards. But thankfully it was released in September 18th, and many seemed to like it. I did however make an error when talking about how Base was the Shadow the Hedgehog of the Mega Man franchise, because Shadow is a lone wolf who doesn't work for anyone. He worked with Dr. Eggman and isn't loyal to him at all, but rather collaborating with him until it was in his best interest to work with Sonic to save the world. So unlike Base, Shadow the Hedgehog never worked for Dr. Eggman, he just worked with him, and that was a really bad reading of Sonic Adventure 2, so I apologize for misrepresenting the premises of that analogy. I should have said something along the lines of collaborated with the main antagonist's mad scientist, or should have just broke it down to being the main rival character of the series. But other than that, I liked how the episode turned out. So looking back, it's been a great season of content. Despite some dry spells, 2022 more than made up for in content, especially the summer of SQG for 2022, which didn't really feature any SQG videos, but rather some event live streams. I had a blast getting together with friends to do the Mega Man X4 race that I wasn't able to do on the Dawn of a New Day charity stream. I did lose to Ron with him beating X4 before I was even able to finish the Maverick stages. That's what I get for not practicing, but I still love the game very much, and it's still one of my favorite games of all time. And as punishment for losing, I had to play Harane's balls to the wall hard Metroidvania Mega Man Maker stage, which was pretty well designed despite some of the bosses being bullshit. I did have fun though. Harane actually designed a better Metroidvania than Mega Man ZX. Oh snap! There was also the Super Mario Kart race against my apparent new arch nemesis being the Fetch-Questing Gentleman. I guess he's like the Wario to my Mario, and me being the Mario of this saga, I of course beat him 2-1 on Super Mario Kart's 50cc Grand Prix. But he did beat me in battle mode. I just hope he enjoys his $20 fucking dollars. But yeah, that was a blast. That, as well as participating in a charity livestream in July, was the highlight of my summer. The Dawn of a New Day 72-hour charity livestream, which did have me as a co-commentator and even a secret donor throughout these 3 days. We raised over $1,600 for direct relief, and we were all very proud of just how much was raised at the end of the 3-day charity stream. There was just something so bittersweet about it. In fact, a lot of the money that was made happened while I was asleep. Perhaps the most bittersweet about this was how the community just came together and helped out in any way they could, from sharing the stream to donating themselves, or just the reactions to on-screen chaos from various games, especially Mario Party and Majora's Mask Online multiplayer. That was a fun shit show. So Season 6, from mid-2020 to late 2022, it's been a blast, and I'm glad it reinvigorated my interest in making videos. I can finally have my cake and eat it too when it comes to either making videos or just chilling out on my free time, doing things just unrelated to videos. And I'd like to thank my friends Redbird36 for redesigning my Season 5 intro, and even going above and beyond and designing a second one I'd use for special occasions. There's also Tristan for making the new profile pic so I can finally abandon the chibi SQG profile pic that I had since Season 3. And finally, my viewers for being so cool about the rebranding and actually using my new name. I'm still SQG, but I'm not SideQuest Gamer anymore, and they were very aware of that. So with this season coming to an end, thank you all so much for being with me for so long, and as always, remember to stay awesome. And with that said, I hope to see you soon for next season, and yes, it'll come very soon. I've been working on it non-stop during the production of this video, which has been hell because there's just a lot of waiting for things to come in, so...
Prisoner 60995, I'm afraid it's time.
Great, and not a minute too soon. Oh boy, it's time to face the music.
I gotta say, it's quite the honor to meet you. You're probably the most wanted criminal in this localized quadrant of the multiverse. Hell, the supreme leader of this quadrant is even here to see you get executed. How crazy is that?
Let me guess, he's in the presidential suite of the space station. I mean, he is kind of the president after all.
As a rookie guard who was just assigned here, yes, he's in the presidential suite, but you did not hear that from me. And also, long live the Society of Questioning Gentlemen.
I was wondering when you guys show up. Better late than never.
Take this performance-enhancing drug and follow my lead, okay?
Alright, I got a shot glass in my pocket that they didn't confiscate because it's not exactly metal. That's a black hole, all right. You sure you guys want this on your conscience? Executing a man on live TV who's innocent of most of the crimes I've been accused of? Best of luck, SideQuesting gentlemen. I think you'll be in for quite the surprise. Ooh, that dark vortex is definitely making me nauseous and dizzy. I don't want to throw up when I'm getting executed, so, do you mind if I, take my, motion sickness pills?
I'll allow it.
Ooh, I think that was the wrong pills. About that motion sickness pill, I lied. That was actually a strength performance enhancer. And you're now going to pay.
Guards, put it onto high alert. Seize him.
Oh, I like these. Oh shit, they turned up the size of the black hole. They're gonna fucking swallow the station whole with everyone in it. What are they thinking? Unless that was part of the plan. Ah, not my problem. I'm getting out of here. Ooh, looks like I'm not the one out of your sales. Alright, here's the deal, bud. If you want to escape, you gotta tell me. Where are the escape gates? So, looks like this is it. Don't know what's on the other side, but it's worth a shot. Computer, warp me to the safe world.
Only available destination, the Dark World.
We finally meet, SQG. You might want to come with me if you want to survive this ordeal. Fuck you. No thank you, but believe me when I say you were not really meant to get involved in this conflict. You got caught up in it, came in too deep, bit off more than you can chew, and now you found that the Psyquestian interdimensional government has been hounding you for the past few years. But I have cleared your name. I erased your name and identity and DNA signature off the database. The Psyquestian Skull Forces will no longer be after you unless you get caught up in more illegal activities. So we can end this over serialized melodrama. I don't want anything to do with you. You don't want anything to do with me. This is clearly the best option for all parties involved. Oh, why, that's so nice of you. What's the catch? I know nothing here is free. You just have to come to my laboratory. No thanks. This grenade's gonna kill you in a few seconds. It's funny that you think this is me and not some clone proxy of me. Please, do I look like someone who would wear a 1950s scientist lab coat? Give me a break. Computer, take me to the only world listed. I don't care how dangerous it is, just get me out of here.
Very well then, preparing the portal and your funeral arrangements.
Well, I don't have any better options, so... see ya! It's been several months since I've been trapped in the Dark World. It's just like Earth, except shittier. And the sky's always crimson red. But even that's a great day, because this world gets acid storms. And there's also creatures that are like zombies, but they're not. They're known as the manipulated dead. And, well, You don't want to be trapped here because it'll mess with your psyche, but you know what they say. A lesser person would die here, but me, I just keep surviving and surviving. And it's gonna be like that until I find a way home. Hopefully I'll be home before Christmas, but there's no guarantees in life. So, until then, I'm just gonna have to survive.